All right, hey everybody. I'm going to do a very quick little introduction to your textbook right here. So what you're going to want for this is a way to watch this video, and you're going to want your book. That's pretty much it. What I want to do is show you some key features in your book. I bought it for a reason, so it's actually important that you get the most out of it that you possibly can. Okay, let's start over here. These are features that come up in the different sections that you're going to be in, and so each one has a page number. Feel free to pause this anytime if you're looking at a particular feature for a little while. What you might want to do is just navigate your way to the very first page, page number 1, and notice that there's something on it called a case study, and every chapter has one of these. Sometimes we will do assignments based on them. Sometimes we'll do them as sort of investigative tasks. But they will come in handy because they give us context of what we're going to do. So don't be surprised if I direct you to a case study as we start a chapter. If you turn the page to page 2, there's some features there I'd like you to see. At the very top of the page, there's a red outline box that says what you will learn. Many of you I know probably skip over boxes like that. They're actually super important because they tell you skills that you should gain by the end of the section, and those are the kinds of things that I'm going to be measuring your learning based on. And I will let you know if there's any learning objectives in a section that we may be deferring or skipping for sake of time. So it's actually kind of important that you note those. The other thing on page 2 and 3 is the boxes that are green that say definition. Those are super important. Vocabulary in this class is incredibly important. You may decide you want to make a sort of glossary of important terms. If it's in boldface, it's important. So you need to know precise meanings of these, not vague meanings, but exactly how they're different from each other, and we'll have some discussion with that in class. You also might notice that on page 3 there is an example, and the thing about it that I want you to see is that it has a little button at the top right of the example that looks like a play button. And whenever that happens in this book anywhere, if it happens in exercises or anywhere, that means that if you go to the book website, which I have here, just notice there are a series of video links. So there are Technology Corner videos, which will show you how to do things on your graphing calculator. That could be handy. There are worked example videos, and there are worked exercise videos. So watch out for those little play icons. They can be super handy for you when you're trying to figure out how to do something, or you forgot how to do it, but you knew before. So those are very, very helpful. And by the way, this site is bookmarked both on the links page. It's also bookmarked for you in Google Classroom. So look for the textbook resources site. All right. On page 4, if you go to page 4, a couple of things there. We have another definition box, but near the bottom of the page, there's a tan colored box, and it has a little header at the top that says how to explore data. That's what you'll see when they're going to summarize an idea that you're going to need to know. So look for those tan boxes with sort of a dark purple header. Those are going to be super important ideas for you to know. And right below it is a set of exercises that are marked with a check mark that say check your understanding. The check your understanding problems we will use very frequently just to do exactly what they say, check our understanding, to see if we're making progress toward a learning target. Okay, so still have more features just in this first section. On page 5, please notice that there is a box that's green, big box, and it says activity at the top. We will sometimes do those. So in class, those might be things that we work on across the cohorts as teams. And so you might be building some time in the class period for you and your partners to decide how you're going to work through those. All right. There is something called a Technology Corner. If you want to turn to page 36, you'll see an example of that. That one is called How to Make a Histogram. And it will show you screenshots of what your calculator can look like when you do certain operations on it. And that can at least get you started or refresh your memory if you're struggling with that. And those might be things that we spend some time in a Zoom session talking about in more detail. Okay? All right. Back to page 6. Every section does have a summary at the end. Why would you care, you say? All of the keywords in bold that have been defined through the section are there in a very concise way. So that might actually be a good way for you to say, what vocabulary in this section do I need? And use it as a reference. And then there are exercises at the end of each section. Just so you know, the numbering on those runs through an entire chapter. So this set of exercises for this first section ends with number 8. So in the next section, they'll actually start with 9, and they'll keep going from there. So the numbers increase through that whole chapter. All right, so that just gives you an idea of things to look for in your book that will be helpful to you. Yes, you will be reading it. You will be pulling information out of it, not all the time, every day, but you will be doing that. All right, end of the chapter, there's some good features there. So if you'll go to page 67 in your book, you can see an example. Remember how we talked about the case study at the beginning of the chapter? Near the end of the chapter, in the last section of the chapter, there will be a series of questions called case closed that refer to the same context. And those would be things that I might have you complete and turn in as sort of a lab. That's the best equivalent I can come up with on that, and you can work on those collaboratively. Sometimes we'll do them in class, not for a grade, just for discussion as well. If you look at page 74, you'll see a chapter summary, and these are actually really good. They're very short. They give you the biggest ideas that you really need to know in the chapter, so they would be good things to sort of either read at the beginning of the chapter to get an idea of what you're supposed to learn, or to review at the end. And then the what did you learn? It's a chart. And that's really helpful because if you say to yourself after a week or so, you know, I've forgotten the difference between a symmetric and a skewed graph, then at the bottom, very bottom of page 75, the very last entry says, identify the shape of a distribution from a graph as roughly symmetric or skewed, which is one of the things you're going to learn. It tells you what section you can find that on. It gives you a page number with a good example, and it gives you chapter review exercises where you could practice that particular skill. So that's pretty handy to have. On the next page, you'll see those review exercises. They start with an R, and there's usually a pretty good set of those at the end of a chapter. They're excellent to do to help you review previous material. Okay, and then the last thing each chapter has is a practice test for AP style questions. This one, first chapter starts on page 78, and then every few chapters they have a cumulative mixed one. We're going to do a lot of that on AP Classroom, but it's there, and it's good practice. I would recommend that you consider taking a look at some of those. All right, well, that's a little preface to your book. We're going to get more into it as we go, but I hope that at least gives you some things to think about as we start the year.